After a night of partying, Tree Gelbman, a self-absorbed college student, wakes up in an unfamiliar dorm room, disoriented and hungover. The room belongs to Carter Davis, a kind-hearted classmate she barely remembers. Ignoring Carter's attempts at small talk, she hurriedly gathers her things and returns to her sorority house, brushing off her housemate Lori Spengler's thoughtful gesture of gifting her a birthday cupcake. Tree tosses the cupcake in the trash and continues her day, which includes an illicit rendezvous with her married professor, Dr. Gregory Butler. That night, as Tree heads to a party, she is lured into a dark tunnel by a mysterious figure wearing a baby-faced mask and is brutally murdered. But instead of dying, Tree awakens in Carter's dorm room, reliving the same morning. Initially shaken, she dismisses the experience as a vivid sense of déjà vu. However, as the day unfolds with eerie familiarity, Tree realizes something is amiss. She again heads to the party but takes a different route to avoid the tunnel. Unfortunately, the masked killer tracks her down and murders her again. Tree wakes up in Carter's bed once more, horrified to find herself stuck in a time loop. Determined to survive, she barricades herself in her room, hoping to avoid the killer altogether. But her plan fails when the killer, already lying in wait, attacks and kills her yet again. Desperate for answers, Tree confides in Carter, who surprisingly believes her story. He suggests she use the loop to her advantage and identify her killer. Taking his advice, Tree begins to shadow people she suspects might want her dead, including Lori, Gregory, and even some of her sorority sisters. Each time, she confronts a suspect or avoids danger, only to be gruesomely murdered in another iteration of the day. During one particularly violent encounter, Tree is bludgeoned by the killer and wakes up with noticeable physical weakness. After fainting, she ends up in the campus hospital. Butler examines her injuries, which are mysteriously compounding with each death. Before long, the masked killer appears at the hospital, forcing Tree to flee in Gregory's car. But the killer pursues her and causes a fatal crash. Tree wakes up again in Carter's dorm room, more frustrated but also more determined. This time, she notices a news report about John Toombs, a dangerous serial killer being held at the campus hospital. Convinced Toombs is her attacker, Tree rushes to the hospital to stop him. Her suspicions are seemingly confirmed when Toombs escapes custody and attacks her. In the ensuing chaos, Carter comes to her rescue but is killed in the process. Devastated, Tree lures Toombs to a bell tower, where she successfully overpowers him with a crowbar. However, just as she is about to kill him, she realizes ending the loop now would mean Carter's death becomes permanent. Tree makes a heartbreaking choice. She climbs to the top of the tower and hangs herself, resetting the loop one last time to save Carter. With renewed purpose, Tree resolves to not only survive but also fix her broken relationships. She ends her affair with Gregory and finally reconnects with her estranged father over a heartfelt lunch, confronting the grief she has buried since her mother's death. That night, she goes to the hospital, anticipating Tom's escape, and successfully kills him before he can harm anyone. Relieved to finally be free of the time loop, Tree celebrates her birthday with Carter and decides to eat the cupcake Lori had given her earlier. But the nightmare isn't over. Tree wakes up once again in Carter's dorm room, realizing she is still trapped. Confused and terrified, she re-examines the events of the previous loop and recalls that the only difference was eating the cupcake. Confronting Lori, Tree accuses her of poisoning the dessert. Lori initially denies it but eventually snaps, admitting she intended to kill Tree out of jealousy. She had been having an affair with Gregory as well and wanted Tree out of the picture. When the poisoned cupcake failed, Lori used her position as a nurse to manipulate events and frame Toombs for Tree's murder. The confrontation turns violent as Lori attacks Tree. In a climactic struggle, Tree forces the poisoned cupcake into Lori's mouth before kicking her out of a second-story window, killing her. The next day, Tree and Carter celebrate her survival over breakfast. Carter offers his dorm room for her to crash in, and they share a tender kiss. Tree wakes up the following morning, momentarily panicked that the loop has reset again. Carter plays along with her fear, pretending it's the same day, before revealing it was just a prank. Relieved and overjoyed, Tree finally lets go of her worries and embraces her new beginning. Happy Death Day ends with Tree transformed from a shallow, self-centered individual into someone who values her relationships and is ready to live her life to the fullest, free from the haunting loop that forced her to confront her past and take control of her future.